All right, good morning and welcome to the Planning Board meeting of January 15th. Seeing how we have a quorum, call the meeting to order and let's do our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Does any member of the Planning Board have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? And if so, please state so at this time. Richard?
I do not.
I do not.
I do not. All right, and then it's time to amend or approve the agenda. Does anyone have any additions? Changes?
I do not.
None.
Ready for, can I have a motion?
I move to adopt the agenda as written.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And on to approval of minutes of October 2nd minutes. Does anyone have any comments, changes?
Yeah, they look pretty. They look great.
No issues.
All right. How about the December 18th minutes? Any comments, issues?
None on my behalf.
Nope. Do not.
I had two things on, let's see, on the discussion about the land use plan,
This is December 18th.
December 18th.
Can we go ahead and approve the October 2nd?
Okay,
So I move to approve the minutes for October 2nd.
so second. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. So go ahead.
All right. On December 18th, on the last page, there was items that I had proposed, and Kimberly changed my sex to she. In the last, both paragraphs, I mentioned as a she. Just change those simple typos. And that's all I had for those. Anything else?
I move the correction of that one typographical error that we adopt the December 18th minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, it's the box.
Touches the box and it doesn't.
Yeah. That sounds like a great idea. Test. Much better. Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda are public comments for agenda items only. All right, seeing none, move on to old business and the major site plan for Lumina Fairways. And I'll pass it on to Ron.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Jones, or Chair today, I guess I should say. Item before you, you heard at your last meeting. It is the Lumina Fairway site plan. As you know, you spent an hour and a half or so at your last meeting going through this document. But ultimately continued it to this meeting as there was a discussion on building height and asking the applicant to come back to this board with addressing the building height issue. I'm paraphrasing, not We did not receive a site plan, any updates. The applicant is here today that wants to, I think, discuss and present their information on that. And I also have a letter I want to pass out to you from them. At your last meeting, height was the main issue, but you also had some conversation, and which I believe the applicant agreed to, including sidewalk design to improving pedestrian access. I'm not going through every point that was brought up, but just paraphrasing. With some lane dimension information, handicap ramps at specific locations. But again, the main issue discussed during the last meeting was building height. The planning board believed the building height as shown in elevations were, in my words, not in compliance with the town's UDO, and did not believe the plan should be conditionally approved as requested by the applicant at that time. So you voted to continue this case to this meeting, and that's why it's on your agenda. And asked the applicant to address the height of the building, show compliance, and I believe the applicant is prepared here to go through the plan, and don't want to put words in your mouth, applicant, but would like to present to the board and outline why you believe that the plan is consistent and compliant and should be approved. Is that correct? So that's my intro. I'm going to pass out the letter that they provided. I got late yesterday. And basically this letter, and I'm sure he'll go through it. They had, remember at your last meeting, there was a letter that was in your packet. They were requesting a condition by this board to be considered when you voted. They are withdrawing that request for that condition, and now want to present and outline why they believe the site plan is in full compliance. They'll go through it, but they're saying the elevator, hoistway, associated equipment, and fire suppressant system with roof access requires that roof enclosure, and therefore they believe the code allows that to the building height to extend above the 50 feet. So with that said, that's my intro for today, and available for questions, or we can open the floor up to the applicant.
So this is not a matter of the gable height. I'm confused.
I believe the applicant can go through that plan. Alan, do you mind putting the plan up on screen for us? You may have that first, and I can go through it, Matt, then if you want to. Let me see the.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to fast forward to the. I believe it's on here. It should be on here. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to look at this cross section of the building here. On the right-hand side, they're measuring 47 feet and some change to the average peak of the roof. So think where the peak of the roof measured 47 feet, and then it goes another 6 feet and some change to the tip of the roof. And they're saying that the elevator shaft that the building has is necessitating that additional height above the 50 feet. One, the elevator's required, and I don't want to put, they're saying the elevator's required because it is a 4-story building. They're also saying the clear distance between the top of the elevator shaft requires that pitch of the roof, the 412 pitch roof, or 12.4, whichever it is, and to get the space necessary. And as a result, the building has to be at 53 feet and some change. And there's some other reasons too, I believe, that the applicant will go through. But I'm just trying to address your initial question that they may be able to provide some additional information on.
Okay.
Does that make sense, though, Mr. Dysinger? Does that help explain a little bit what's going on?
Right. So subject 13, the conditional zoning edict.
Building shall not exceed 50 feet.
50 feet. And there's nothing in there about the secondary need for mechanicals or any other. It's like whatever you do, it's got to be 50 feet.
And let me read the specific. The specific condition was the height of multifamily residential structure shall not exceed 50 feet.
Right. And that's consistent with the MR3 standard,
that is part and parcel of the vast majority of the zoning classifications within Sunset Beach. Okay. And again, in the MR3, that 50 feet does not include or suggest that it's 50 feet. And oh, by the way, if you need extra footage for mechanicals, it's allowed.
Well, let me read you the definition. Sorry, I just had it up and it went away. Page summary. So the previous definition, because this was under the old code, was listed in Appendix A, and it says building height is defined as the vertical distance from finished ground level to the highest part of the building or any structure attached to the building, excluding chimneys, flagpoles, antennas, church spires, and necessary mechanical devices. Their position is...
Now that is the old UDO.
That's the old UDO, which they are subject to. And our new UDO, or current UDO, uses that same definition.
Okay, we're going to have a major issue here, because in the conditional zoning negotiations that we spent 4 days with Riptide, they verbally accepted the responsibility, even though the new UDO was in process, that they would adhere to the new UDO, number one. Number two, and I do want to hear, you know,
yeah, I'm gonna say they definitely need to be. They need to be here today.
what they're asking of us. Number two, the conditional zoning request is unique and separate from the UDO. I mean, that's the whole point of a conditional zoning request, is to allow the developer to create unique and different standards to satisfy the requirements of the developer in terms of their aspirations to build something. And we provided Riptide with 22 conditional zoning requests, and then this is one of them. So I want to lay that as the framework, but let's go ahead and hear from the applicant.
If I can say a few things. First of all, MR3 allows up to 50-foot buildings.
Right.
And my understanding with the approvals, and applicant Matt, please, if you disagree, please say so when you get a minute to speak, was the old code applied, but for the landscaping provisions, the tree preservation provisions. So, but regardless, the current code defines, when it was brought over and approved, defines building height the same way as the old code, but then last year we amended the building height. I'll read the definition. The vertical distance from finished ground level to the highest part of the building or any structure attached to the building, excluding chimneys, flagpoles, antennas, church spires, and necessary mechanical devices. What was added by the board last year is and screening apparatus not exceeding 6 feet in height, or the height of the mechanical device, whichever is less.
My understanding was that was limited to the mud district.
No, the mud district was
We
the
changed
mud district.
the definition.
Okay, and
The
we went
building
through
height.
and changed it.
Yeah.
So,
So I just want to put that out.
I'm still. My issue is the conditional zoning request stands alone. It's independent of any. It's basically saying the rules of the UDO no longer apply in this conditional zoning request because the applicant has asked us to provide certain relief in certain areas so they can build stuff. And the conditional zoning request says 50 feet. And there are no exceptions in that conditional zoning request per what you've just shared.
And all I'm going to ask is that the applicant present.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to preempt. Please.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, appreciate that. And thanks again for having me this morning. So again, to the point on my letter, the case made in the site plan that's shown on the screen is the same site plan that was submitted for the original submission for that was heard in the December meeting. There's been no changes. There's been no subsequent documents provided to the town for review. That cross-section sheet that laid out the justification for the ridge vent height on the structure at 53 plus a few inches is still the same case that we're making today. I here as the civil engineer of record for the applicant. I'm by no means am a mechanical engineer or a architect. And the case that has been made and continues to be made is that there is within the conditional zoning all conditions statement that where, and I don't have it in front of me to read it verbatim. I believe it's the last condition for all sites is that where there's not enough definition that it would fall back to the UDO and the UDO in place at the time.
Can we get a confirmation of that reading?
I'll read it. So what I'm reading from is on page 4 of your case summary, and it's condition 10 under the general conditions that apply to all the subject area, I believe is what you're referencing.
Yes.
And it says, unless otherwise noted or specified on provided plans or conditions, the minimum requirements of the UDO shall be applicable to all development contained herein.
Right.
And that's the condition the applicant is referencing.
So with that reference, it's kind of back to the topic prior to where I began. It is what's being utilized to enter into the review of the definition of building height in Appendix A of the UDO at the time. And we did read that before.
Hold on.
Yep.
Is what we're suggesting that final sentence in the conditional zoning, subject 13, now brings into the conditional zoning request the conditions of the prior UDO?
What I'm reading there is that the old code applies unless it was specifically stated otherwise on the plan or one of the conditions. The intent of the time was when this was approved, it was the older code. Planning board and council, or planning board particularly, was working on the landscaping provisions at that time, so the tree preservation requirements from the current code were brought into the conditional zoning, and the applicant agreed to that. Otherwise, everything else pretty much stayed the same under the previous code.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's how I'm trying to simplify it a little bit.
Yep.
So essentially, what was made in the site plan and verbally to an extent prior or during the December meeting was that there's a lot of hours spent during the review of the conditional zoning between the planning board and then ultimately town council. And one argument that was made was that these are the same buildings, the same structures that were presented at the time. It's the same architecture, the same height, including within this particular approved conditional zoning plan that states height of 47 feet, 8 inches and 7/16. The argument made at the time also was that what was unclear during all of the presentations, the many hours of the presentations that I was not a part of, but that the definition of building height was not reviewed and clear. And so the applicant was under the understanding that the mean roof height, which accounted for the necessary mechanical equipment, was the actual building height, which is the 47 and change. But then the necessary mechanical equipment had to be protected with the 412 roof pitch. The Appendix A definition was not explored at the time, but at a certain point, it had to have been to know that the necessary mechanical equipment statement was in the definition. We're presenting the same thing, saying as last time as in the site plan, that the building is the same building presented during the conditional zoning. There's been no change to any architectural element of this building. We're bringing forward the same building. It will then be again reviewed at the time of building application for applicability to the conditional zoning and all other building code. And essentially that this building meets the height definition in the code when applied to the conditional zoning conditions laid out for subject 13 and all conditions and all sites. So I'm not here to debate mechanical elements and the dimensions of those mechanical elements, but simply that the mean roof height of 47 feet is below the 50 feet. That is the building height definition, and that the pitch roof, the roof pitch that is at 412 to be able to screen and protect all of the mechanical equipment and gain access to that mechanical equipment is what's driving then the additional 6 feet to go 3 feet above the 50 foot max height limit of a building. So that's what's presented. Again, I'm not here to debate any of those specific components of the building. I can't do that, but I just wanted to present that again. The same case prior, we wanted the December meeting letter request from me on behalf of the applicant was to conditionally approve the site plan, because we were hopeful for no delay that this debate could happen at the building application, at the construction application for the buildings themselves. That could still be in play, but at this point we stand that the what was submitted is approvable. It meets all code in the UDO at the time, plus the conditions in the subject 13 conditional zoning.
My recollection, and I meant to go back and review the videotape of that, and I did not. So I can't say this definitively. But that supposition does not, to my mind, reflect what happened in those discussions. MR3 and the multifamily buildings that have been traditionally approved are all 3 stories, mechanicals covered by gables. And we've always known that, okay, there are probably ways to get 4 stories under 50 feet. But I don't believe it was ever the intent of the planning board that, okay, 4 stories, and then whatever you need for mechanicals, if it goes above, that's fine. I understand the issues that you're dealing with in trying to build this. My sense is the way to go about this is to submit a revision of the conditional zoning request for subject 13 that specifically includes what you're suggesting. Because if we just approve this based on, okay, we missed it, it opens a whole Pandora's box of every conditional zoning request that we granted and everybody that's going to build an MR3 going forward. And I'm not willing to do that. You know, I'm willing to grant exceptions as long, and we did this with, you know, the Hampton Inn.
Right.
But and they came and said, hey, we have a problem. Here's what we need you to do to fix it. And it turned out that the text amendment was the best way to do that. I don't think the text amendment is the way to do that here, because MR3 is just too big. I do think there is a way to say, okay, we understand the issue that you're dealing with. I'm not a huge fan of 4 stories back in that area. I think it does, you know, all of those condominiums back there are 3 stories with gables. But for me, the only way to do this is to do a conditional zoning amendment that now has to be presented to the planning board, approved by the town council, that satisfies the conditions that you wish to apply to this. But I, for one, am not going to, on the basis of, oh, we didn't think of it at the time, and, you know, well, this UDO and that UDO, I'm not willing to approve this. I don't know how the other planning boards, and I don't mean, you know, I want Riptide to succeed, and this is, you know, we approved 22 conditional zoning requests, and while they've done a great job, you know, in some of the areas, you know, there's still a lot of those conditional zoning requests that are sitting fallow that I'd love to see, because, you know, the hope was that they're going to convert Sea-Trail, and I live in Sea-Trail, full disclosure. I have since my family's owned property there since '91. You know, I would love to see those, you know, built and developed. You know, there's a driving range that was supposed to be built, all sorts of things. So I'm not in principle against 4-story condominium here, but this isn't the way to do it.
Well,
I'm done.
I appreciate your insight into this, Richard, because I wasn't here during all that zoning process. Ron, is there any validity to them saying that the sketch they provided during the zoning? I mean, I didn't remember it having a height on it, or
The
you know,
plan, go ahead,
the-
finish.
during the zoning.
Right. So the plan on the screen is what was presented, represents what was presented to council. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can't really see it too well on that screen, but the bottom left-hand corner
Right.
are the building elevations with some, I think, a floor layout as well as, and you'll see kind of like a little orange or yellow box to the right-hand side, and then that orange box or yellow box on the right-hand side outlines building height among some other things. And I blew it up on my screen, I believe, so I could read it. What is it?
And while Ron does that, just
Go ahead.
the applicant has made statements, and again, I don't know, it's probably not worth debating or trying to go back and review and try to find it, but that there was provided to the town staff a USB drive with not only what's shown on this, but also all of the documents, the elevation documents that are shown in the site plan, and that they're the same documents. Again, to
Yeah, but-
forensically go back and find that happened.
So I mean,
might be not
I
worth our-
found something on the file that has like final approval or something, I forget what it was.
Sure.
And it is all the data sheets that were in there as well as each individual concept plan.
Right.
And it's very consistent with that.
Yeah.
So that elevation shows 4-story building. What you can't see in that elevation on the screen is exactly, is it a 412 pitch roof or 12-4, whichever it is. You can't really tell what the pitch
Right.
of the roof is, whether it's because the plans that you got in your packet are more looking at it straight versus this one's more of at an angle. I can't
Right.
attest to that is the same.
And
But
my issue with that is, you know, maybe there was, but I can tell you flat out that in the conditional zoning process, we were talking about general principles. Nobody said, hey, if you do 50 feet, this is the building we're going to build. And are you approving that? That's not what happened. And we spent hours on each of these subjects. And the applicant had plenty of time to enlighten the planning board that 50 feet didn't mean 50 feet. That 50 feet would also require some allowance for mechanicals above and beyond. And, you know, the standard is, and has always been, this is the height that we can give you, okay? If you can get 4 stories under 50 feet, go for it.
And yeah, and if I may, to that point and your previous point, that is what was requested. Your previous point was what was requested in December with the approval with a condition that this issue be ironed out in the time from site plan approval, which was hopeful to be in December, to the building application. That all of that would be ironed out, and the plan was at the time to get that conditional site plan approval in December and submit a conditional zoning modification, which has to go through the full process, public meetings, and back to this board, and then to council.
Well, then
And the justification for
Go ahead.
that, the justification at that time for my first letter in December was that there was some, with all of the hearings and all of the time spent, that was not explored at the time of the conditional zoning.
And that,
And-
frankly, is on the applicant. Okay, it's not up to the planning board to do the applicant's job. If they had an issue with 50 feet based upon the need for mechanicals, completely understand. And if they had said, hey, 50 feet and we need allowance for mechanicals, I doubt if there'd been much resistance to it.
Or had
about-
they asked for a change in the definition of building height
Yes,
at the time of the zoning?
at the time of the conditional zoning request.
And they didn't do that.
They did
either.
not. And I'm
But
sorry, we spent hours on this stuff. We spent 4 days, 4-hour meetings each day. Okay? So this wasn't something that was reviewed quickly. So I agree with you. The process to fix this is for the applicant to come with a request for a conditional zoning change to just subject 13, go through the conditional rezoning process, and if it gets approved,
If I may,
go ahead.
also, at the time, this was a message delivered to staff in a written letter requesting modification to the conditional zoning. That yes, that is required, because furthermore, subjects 16 and 17, which also have approved 4-story buildings, do not list in the conditional zoning that was signed by the mayor and the applicant a max building height. And the applicant was willing to define those max building heights for those 4-story buildings in the conditional zoning, to your point, in that the conditional zonings themselves are specific to those sites, that the UDO, it doesn't matter, that it's what's in the conditional zoning. So we were prepared to define that building height in those two other multifamily sections. In the denial, or in pushing this topic to this month, we've decided to go back and say, we still meet. In my letter that was provided to you today,
Mhm.
we meet the definition of building height with what's provided. We're still willing to come back and submit that conditional zoning revision to be essentially as well to define building height for subject 16, 17 for the 4-story buildings in those projects.
I'd have to go back and review 16 and 17, which I have not done, to your point. I get I'm dominating the discussion here because I think I'm the only one here that was,
Right.
God help us, there doing all that stuff. I mean, Pete Frankel was here, who headed the planning board.
Right.
But can I back up real quick? I don't know that I fully answered your question. You had asked about, and I was going to, the details in that orange box was one of
Right.
the things. That orange box says the height was 47 feet, 7 1/8 inch. What that orange box doesn't do, the applicant did not demonstrate or provide any guidance on where that 47 feet was measured, nor did staff ask, where is that 47 feet measured, or the planning board or town council, et cetera. So it was,
So,
I'm just, throwing it out there as a fact and not trying to opine either way.
Right.
so in a way, at the time, the planning board could have interpreted that saying, hey, look, their building height is 47, feet. We've allowed them 50.
So I will say,
No issue.
in relation to that particular point, believe the plan. I did go back and watch portions of segments of that meeting when this issue was discussed, or there was 2 meetings at least. There was discussion about the buildings across the way. There were 3-story. So the applicant was asked by planning board, at least one member, 45 feet. They showed that that's when they indicated was 47 feet. And so the planning board asked, so could we just cut it off at 48 feet? And they said, well, give us a couple more feet to accommodate, get it at 50 to accommodate, like, I forget was it chimney or not chimney, but a roof vent or something. I forget exactly what was identified. So, and I think that's consistent with your point that you
Right.
were just trying to make, that kind of gave them a couple feet leeway from what was showing on the plan.
Right.
Which that was, we also reviewed that same meeting at the time prior to the December meeting. This was actually prior to what was the scheduled November meeting that we were hoping to be on the agenda for, that there was no quorum for. And again, further in our minds, in that was the planning board meeting, and that nobody has reviewed the council meetings on the same topic, if there was any deliberation on that particular topic and further defining things. But that further kind of justified the request then in December for the conditional approval, because yes, was it potentially neglect of the applicant's representatives to say, give us a few extra feet for just in case there's changes or whatever the statement was. They clearly believed that the building height, they also were not an architect, right? They also were not the ones that designed the plan. It is still the same plan that was presented at that time, that we need some time to clear up that definition.
Well,
We're falling back on the UDO now with the definition.
Sorry, the representatives that did almost all of the negotiation were an attorney and Todd Rademacher, who was their planning. So I don't believe there were any engineers in the room. And what that, when the planning board is asked to create new rules, we're not saying, okay, here's the building that you want to build, okay, and now we're going to make rules so you can build it, okay? We're being asked to create new rules, and we review those rules based on, do they reflect the values that are inherent in that particular zoning district? Because a lot of what was changed were, MR3. And MR3 is a very important zoning classification because half of Sunset Beach is MR3. So when we start tinkering with MR3, there's a fair amount of diligence. So the suggestion that the planning board was, in addition to creating the rules, approving that particular building, to me, that is not my recollection of what was going on. This was almost exclusively a discussion of how we can create the new rule. And to Riptide's credit, they made some significant concessions, and it was a great back and forth. So, I still feel that the best outcome of this is, let's go back, let's do a conditional rezoning amendment, and go through that process. The community has a right to understand that we are changing the rules, because we're changing the rules. Okay, none of the condominium developments back there are over 50 feet. None of them are over 3 stories. And I think the community has a right to weigh in. And we went through this with the hotel. Okay, and ultimately the planning board and the town council agreed with the developer that the modification was necessary. And I think we need, I'll shut up after this, but I think that's the path.
I want to say
one last thing for you. Go
yeah, I
ahead.
just want to say that I appreciate that, and that is where we were at our conditioned approval request in December. We did not want to have this board set precedent on a site plan approval with a ridge vent that exceeded 50 feet for a 4-story building. We wanted that to progress beyond this board and bring it back with a conditional zoning revision request.
So I'm going to
Um,
make a motion.
Okay.
that we ask the applicant to return to us at their earliest convenience with a conditional,
Well, we need to have
go ahead.
we need to have a motion that relates to what they've applied for, to the site plan.
Okay,
We can't ask them to come back at,
unless we've decided on this. Okay,
Right.
if you want
We
to
need-
make the motion,
well, Kevin, you haven't said much. How are you feeling about?
I'm listening well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you need to know, maybe for the record, that one, what the options are for the planning board, or do you guys have that? You understand?
Well, I think based on their letter, I think we only have two options. One is to approve it, or one is to deny it.
I agree.
And I'm reading this letter. I don't follow the logic of, because they have a mechanical equipment that's going above the height, that we need to have the whole roof above that height. I think there's other options. I can't get past the fact that the ridge of the building is at 53 and the zoning only allows them to go to 50. And I don't see how we as a board can approve something that's not consistent with the zoning. So I'm with you there.
okay. So I guess the first motion is I move to vote to either approve or deny what the applicant has presented to us at this time. I so move.
I'll second that.
Wait.
Sorry, if I may interject, you're not obligated to vote on this. Just by the way, you're under no obligation to do that.
Okay.
The motion can be to request an amendment, frankly, but you're certainly open to make a final decision.
Well, I would defer to the applicant on this. The last time we went through this, we were at this point, and then
Right.
somebody said, "Hey, we can table this," and I'm happy to table it.
But with same
Well, there's-
With the idea that the next step is a conditional zoning, I'm not sure what the right word, conditional zoning amendment
application, yeah.
Okay. that would be presented in conjunction with the negotiation between staff and the applicant. So do we want, I mean, I don't want to deny, in principle, I'm not against this building.
Right,
I'm just for the rules.
right.
So if we have to change the rules, I'm okay with that. Okay. Now, the town may not be. Okay. There's no guarantee that
That's right. There's
you
no-
put this on the table that, the council's going to approve it. Because now this has to be approved by the board and the council.
Right,
And if it's denied, we're right back where we started, which is 50 feet.
right.
Okay. So I know that's not what you came here for, and I do want to say, I'm it's not it's not that I'm against this building. It's just that it creates a lot of problems unless we do this
Correct.
within a certain process that is well-defined, well-traveled. It obviously, to be clear, there are some risks, okay?
And can be reviewed by the public. If we're going to change building height, essentially, I think it needs to be in a public forum.
Oh, absolutely. There will have to be a public meeting.
So again, sorry, and
go ahead.
thank you for the time. That was the plan in December, just following the cancellation of the planning board meeting in November.
Okay.
The request for the conditional approval of this site plan was made at the December meeting, and the plan was to move forward with that. I understand that this letter now withdraws that conditional approval, but I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this board can still
Yes.
weigh that as an option, even though my letter withdraws the request. That was simply a request. I'm withdrawing it, but in writing, but I still think it's an action that can be made. And furthermore, in addition to the justification in the letter, in the site plan, in that cross section is further justification to what's being made. It's not just simply the letter. And that site plan was submitted in November to make the November planning board meeting agenda and have this debate and have this conversation. We're now 2 months after that, and further delays will continue to delay. I understand setting precedent at this board, making changes, but also all of this justification has been made in writing, has been made in previous meeting. And I just wanted to state that I do think that conditional approval of this site plan is still an action that can be made. But of course, I'm not an attorney or no.
Yeah.
I'm
There's
not
a
either,
big difference between conditional approval and conditional zoning. Okay? And we at the planning board cannot be in the business of wink, wink, conditional approval in this one case.
I will say that the planning board's options are prove it, deny it, and conditionally, or prove it with conditions. The conditions, though, have to be consistent with the code. Again, the example I always like to use, if there's a 20-foot buffer requirement, you can't condition it that they put in a 50-foot buffer. This is just a simple example. So I do believe legally you can conditionally approve the plan, subject that they comply with the 50-foot requirement. It would give them time to go through the process to potentially to see if they can get it modified, or if they can't modify it, then they, because they do take risks, as you guys pointed out.
Well,
They could then resubmit a building plan that shows compliance with the standard.
well, fine. If they want to come back 4 stories, 50 feet, this is all moot.
Right.
And the other option is, okay, we give up 3 stories, gables, 50 foot. I was hoping that that's what we would have today.
Right.
The applicant's choice was to make the case that based on some inconsistencies and lack of clarity from meetings that are 2 years old, that this should be allowed to go through. In terms of, I've stated it. I think the conditional zoning amendment is the way to go. And the quicker we do this, the quicker we'll be able to either satisfy or inform the applicant that, yes, you can go ahead and build to 54 feet, or sorry, the town council, the community has stated that, no, you got to be 50 feet.
Right. And so what happens, my concern with the conditional approval, even last month, was that if they have to change the building somehow to get building height right, maybe the footprint changes and the whole site plan changes.
Right.
So I didn't feel good without, a good solution to the building height issue with conditionally approving a site plan that may have to be modified at some point in the future.
I agree.
So I'm back to either approve or deny, and I just don't see how we approve this. And I'm not sure continuing this down the road. I mean,
I think I know where you're going. I think if we just table this, it kind of leaves the road open.
Right. And the rezoning thing is going to take
Months.
what? Months?
Yep.
Year? Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we can keep just continuing this every month.
So
and
I
beat
think in
this.
light of that, I am going to move that we do vote on this application. And then whatever we decide on that, okay, we then begin a conditional zoning process. And, if they want to come back with 13, 16, and 17, fine. So I'm going to move that we vote either to approve or deny this present application.
And because before you take the motion, the vote, because approve or deny, you still don't have a motion.
Right.
So if you deny it, you do need to state reasons why you're voting to deny. We need to have for the record. Also,
Okay.
while the discussion has been, you'd like to see them pursue a modification to the conditional zoning to address the height or however they want to do. I want to make sure the board is clear. If you deny, they have the right to appeal this to the zoning board of adjustment should they want to. They can modify the conditional. There's the litany of tools available to them to address the situation would
So
still
they could
apply.
take this to the Board of Adjustment.
They could appeal this, appeal
Yeah.
your decision. Sure, certainly. It does not go to town council. It goes to the board of adjustment.
And they can
Or
turn
And
whatever
I'm-
they wanted, or whatever tools other that may be available that I'm not aware of.
And
So
I'm
just
perfectly
understand.
happy with that.
And they can turn around and resubmit
Yes.
with a revised plan. And, I've talked to Ron. They
Let
probably
me,
want.
let me amend the motion this way. We are going to vote to accept or deny with the understanding that in every other condition, they have met the requirements of subject 13, except the building height requirement. I mean, I do want to give them some credit. I mean, they've
Right.
made every concession. I mean, I went through the technical review committee. They've addressed every concern. So I don't know if there's a way to phrase that, but to include that in the motion or no?
I think you're going to have to make a motion. Somebody's going to have to make a motion to approve or deny, one or the other, and list, why, and it's really just the building height.
Well, then I make a motion to approve or deny the applicants.
You need to
Gotta
pick one
distinguish
or the other.
I move to deny the applicants'
Based on
submission based on
Building height.
building height alone. I so move.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now, the second motion would be to require staff and the applicant to present a conditional zoning amendment to subject 13, and if they wish, subject 16 and 17. I mean, oh God. I'd have to go back and look at the 22 conditional zoning requests, but are those the only ones that concern building heights?
I was going to address this as well, but let Mr. McLeod.
Sorry,
You're
Richard or Mr. Dysinger, I think I understand what you're alluding to. You can't compel the applicant to request a conditional
We can
zoning
suggest.
request,
That's fine.
but you could suggest that, it would be your desire to review an amendment to that. Secondarily, as you stated, you can review the exact same site plan with the slight modification showing the building height at 50. That can be approved, tomorrow. And they could proceed on, as they may. That would be another option available to the applicant, certainly. Sorry to interject there.
Yeah, no, you make a fair point. So I would encourage the applicant to pursue whatever alternate means to facilitate what they're trying to do. And we don't need a motion for that.
Right, and that's why I had
Correct.
made that point earlier, that if you did deny, they have several options to be able to pursue.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Moving on to new business.
And, sir, thank you.
Yes,
No, thank you.
thank you. Appreciate it. So in new business, we've got an amendment to the Gateway Overlay District. I'm going to turn this over to Ron.
Sure, thank you. So this is not a stranger to you. Discussed this in fairly extensive in the last couple of months. In the last board meeting, you guys voted to direct staff to amend the Gateway Overlay District requirements consistent with your discussion previously. So that's what this staff report is attempting to do. Just to get to the meat of the changes, the first change is to section 3.1, where I believe the planning board believed there was a conflict between 3.1 and 3.3. So the change is to change the last sentence to say that if the standards governing a zoning district expressly conflict with those governing an overlay zoning area, the standards of the overlay zoning shall apply. That's the first proposed change. The second proposed change is to the Gateway Overlay Requirements 3.3 B3, and it's eliminating the specific tree schedule chart in the Gateway Overlay and just referencing the tree charts in the UDO. And that's tables 3.5, 3.6, and 3.7 found in section 3.34.
So we're basically just lifting the table from the UDO and plugging it in.
You're
Right.
lifting this table that's specific to the Gateway Overlay
Mm-hmm.
and referencing to the tree standards in the current code, the other part of the code.
Okay. And my understanding, that standard is somewhat more well-defined
It's-
in,
Well defined, and at the time, I believe when these trees were identified in the Gateway, the tree species that were allowed throughout the town was more general.
Yeah.
And with the UDO update, it was basically brought in native vegetation.
Right.
And so this is just referencing that.
great.
And then the other change would be and this applies both to the Gateway and the urban design standards, is to expand the color palette
Yep.
that is available. You should have a sample color palette in your package. So the change would be to say an example of additional acceptable color palette identified as colors of historic Charleston can be found in Appendix C. The sample you have is a particular brand I will not mention, but we cannot hold someone to a brand. We just basically, they can take that color number
Right.
and take that somewhere else and use whatever brand of paint they want to use, provided they can come close to one of those palettes. I just want to make sure that was clear. We're not trying to say you have to use a specific brand of paint. Just
Can I
use it
ask,
as an
what's the
example.
process for that? So if somebody says, I'm not going to use SW, I'm going to use,
They go to whatever another paint store. They go to paint store and say, hey, here's what the code says I can use. You have one. I don't want to use this brand, but can you give me
so
one that's very close.
does that then have to be approved by the code enforcement?
by us?
Okay, great,
Approved through the planning process. If it's a major site plan, you'll see that.
Right.
perfect. So we're adding all of these colors to the palette?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes. And that was suggested by the chair, who's not here, but that is the palette that he referenced in his materials before. And then
So we're going to add these colors to Appendix C?
we'll have an appendix. It'll be added Appendix C.
Okay.
The issue with the reason why we put the specific colors of Charleston is that you can find that fairly easily on the internet.
Yeah,
Because, and Kimberly and I did, we sampled this, if you will. So you print that in a Word document, it comes out one way. If you save that Word document to a PDF, the colors change.
yeah,
And then if you go run that PDF through the printer, on one printer you get slightly different color. You
Everybody's
put them on
printer
another
is
printer, you
different.
get a different color. So
Yeah.
that's why we want to kind of go with a color number, if you will.
yeah.
And then they can say, hey, this is consistent with this number.
All right. So my understanding is now all of these colors would be approved for the
Yes.
Gateway District.
Yes.
Right.
If assuming
My wife approves.
based on your recommendation, of course, and ultimate council approval. And then the last change is I found a typo in I believe it was the urban design standards. The word principal was misspelled. Actually, it's in the Gateway.
In
In urban
Gateway
design
too.
and Gateway. The word principal is misspelled. Instead of PLE, the PAL, principal should be the proper term.
Okay.
So,
I have a question. I noticed that you included some of the pertinent elements of the 2017 land use plan, I believe, to kind of reinforce.
I did my best to find something in
Yeah.
your land use plan that would apply.
But I mean, these are just general. I mean, we're getting ready to redo it.
Correct.
So, but there's nothing that binds us to this if we approve.
No, it's, when you take it, when you, as always, when you do an amendment to the zoning map or to your UDO, they need to be consistent with the land use plan. Sometimes you can have policies that apply, sometimes not. Like, I'll use the block length example from last year when we defined block length. Comprehensive plan is not going to go into and define, you're not going to find relevant policies there. So I did my best to take the current plan and identify some policies that could be potentially considered in your review of this. Most of them are trying to be more economic development friendly and promote business.
Well, I think, this kind of blanket statement, compatible with its existing coastal town and residential
Sure.
character, is
Yes.
broad enough
It is.
that, we may try in the new land use plan to drill down a little bit into that.
That's,
But, all right, great, thanks.
All right. Well, I was thinking that maybe we'd table this until Ron was back, but I don't see any real
No.
discussion.
A lot of these are things that Ron suggested. So,
Right. So
Um,
I don't have any issues with what has been submitted. How are you guys feeling?
I have no issues.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, hearing that, I'm going to read the consistency statement. Planning Board hereby recommends approval of the proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance and finds that they are consistent with the town's comprehensive plan 2017 Town of Sunset Beach Land Use Plan as the amendments to the Gateway Overlay and Urban Design Standards maintain the current design requirements, and that it is in the public interest because the amendments may encourage commercial development along the major corridors in accordance with the goals outlined in the 2017 Land Use Plan. So there's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did that correctly?
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right. That is the end of new business. And now we're on to our discussion item with the land use plan rewrite and Wes McLeod. You want to come forward and
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. Is there a clicker available? Okay. All right. Thanks for having me here today to talk about the land use plan, comprehensive plan, or as we and you all decided to sort of brand this project as Sunset Beach 2040, charting the course. I will get into this. I know we've sort of already had a bit of a long meeting, but today we're going to go through kind of where we are on the timeline, touch on some community demographics that's part of the material or quote unquote your homework that you'll have. We will go through and talk about where we are on the survey as of today. And then lastly, distribute chapter 1 and 2, but you all already have that. Keep tight. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Any questions before we get started?
no.
No, look forward to it.
So just real quick rehash. We talked about this in December, but goodness, we've had the holidays and everything else, and everyone's forgotten about life. So we're back at it. Just quickly on why to do a comprehensive plan. Provides an opportunity for community self-evaluation, and then particularly of development, regulatory programs, and ordinances. Allows for input from various departments, staff, and elected appointed boards in the town's short and long-term needs, and then helps guide also future budgeting processes as things come out that are important that we hear from citizens. And then lastly, you know, due to the enactment of Chapter 160D, we are now, as local governments, required to adopt and, quote, reasonably maintain a comprehensive plan in order to retain our zoning authority. So, as part of this process, you guys are checking that box, if you will, for adopting or going through this process again about, whatever it is, 8, 9, 10 years later. Okay. Just rehash on timeline. We are here January 15th. Today you are being provided the draft of chapters 1 and 2. We're going to review some demographic information, seek some planning board input on where we are as far as the community survey. And then we'll meet again on the 19th. The goal for that meeting will be to do a comprehensive review of that draft material, go through questions, so on and so forth. So you'll have a full month to review that before we actually get into it. And then just moving through the schedule there, we're anticipating having our first public engagement session sometime in February or March. And then just moving through the spring with, hopefully as we get into the tail end of the summer, being in position to potentially make for this board to recommend approval of this to town council. So we got a long ways to go, but that just gives you an idea of again of where we are, and we'll talk about the timeline each time we meet.
One question.
Yes, sir.
That first community engagement, is that do you know what that's going to look like, and do we need to go ahead and get that scheduled?
That's a great question.
Can we go back to the schedule
Sure.
for a moment?
Yeah. So the first public engagement session is the goal of that is just to seek broad input. There'll be a discussion on what we're about to go through, some of the demographic information, and then depending on when we meet, when that meeting occurs, likely some highlights of the preliminary results of the survey. Yep, just to sort of help folks understand the context, what we've heard so far. And then the balance of the meeting, really the goal of that meeting is, depending on how many folks we have, it'll be a facilitated discussion, seeking input from folks on things that are important, assets of Sunset Beach. We'll get into also which things that are typically folks are easy to call out, the issues or problems that folks see. And then finish up with really trying to get some of those aspirations out of folks. What are the long-term desires, pie in the sky type things that folks want to see in Sunset Beach? All that input will be written down. We'll either break folks into groups. Again, I'm going to have to get with staff and understand exactly if that meeting is going to be here or another place that would allow for,
maybe the community center.
That's what I would anticipate. And so as of now, my guess is that, well, I'll just go ahead and confirm, we're not going to hold that meeting between now and February 19th. But we hope to identify, we'll be able to come forward to you with some potential dates when we meet in February 19th for, hey, these are the dates we're anticipating meeting. You guys are not.
This is for the public meetings.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
you guys will not be required to be there. Certainly, we'd love for you to be there, but it's not like a strict requirement that you attend.
So maybe the first part of March.
Something
you
like that
thinking?
would be, yep. That would be likely a good idea. Let me see. And the other part of that, the reason why I think it would be good to be held at some point in March, is we're going to get to the community survey when we get there, but we're going to have another full month to get results of the meeting, and we meet in February. You guys may say, hey, we're fine to close it out. And if we go to the public engagement session with, the full preliminary results.
My concern is in the 2017 land use plan, despite the good efforts of the planning board and the council at the time, I keep referring to the summary. Community participation, and I quote, was sparse.
Zero.
Yeah.
In the public input meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, yes. I hope that we do not have a similar result. And so I guess we can talk about it now.
Well, the one, I mean, I think we can talk about how we do and that's fine. I would like to see, because my sense is from living here,
Sure.
is that the population changes May, June. There are a lot of people that are taxpayers here
Mm-hmm.
that don't really get engaged until season.
Sure.
So I'm concerned that public engagement in March, yeah, great, let's get as many people as we can. But I think it might be helpful to
Push it.
have in public engagement sections in June, possibly again. Oh, well, you have one in August.
Which I commented before seemed kind of late because August 20th we're supposed to be doing planning board approval.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'm not. If it comes down to increasing community engagement and delaying approval, that's an easy call for me. I mean, if we don't get to approval process until September, I mean, that's not a huge loss to me. Now, it's difficult. We may find that in February and March, wow, people come out and
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, if I may, does the board, would you prefer to, move into April for, the first public engagement session, or later towards March? Beach towns typically start picking up, that it starts to get warm, mid-March or so, right? And then,
Well, I'd like to do it in March because
okay.
if we get early signs that
Then
we're not getting people here,
we can play. Yeah.
then fine. We need, we need to figure out alternative means
Sure.
of, because what I heard when I would start to, quote the land use plan and the survey from nobody asked me. It's kind of like, well,
But
okay.
and that may happen with. I'll just tell you this: as of today, we already have 848 responses to the survey. So we're already, we've got feedback, and the only thing I'll say, and I'll ask you guys' thoughts on this. I know that those meetings were held in the evening for the land use plan public engagement session, and so I don't know that if we should bring forth to you guys a couple options for trying to hold a meeting during the day. You know what I mean? It could be, or early afternoon. That was the direction that was given. We need to hold a meeting at night. We had fewer folks show up. I think that if it was during the day, we might have had more success, if that makes sense.
I think I'd agree with that.
Okay.
I think, it gets dark early and there's a big segment of our population that doesn't like to go out at
Yeah.
night.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I think the afternoon when it's warmer,
Yep.
I think people will still be out and around.
Okay. Well, when we meet on the 19th, we will bring forward to you guys a couple options for dates and
Okay.
times, and we'll see about availability for the community center specifically. and Kimberly, I'll
Yeah.
probably be working with you on that. Okay.
And I think we should make sure that, I mean, I've been to some of these, you know, and I like the idea of the structure of, okay, this isn't, a meeting format, but more informal. The only issue I've had is you walk around and you go, where's NCDOT? Oh, there's nobody here. The consultants are here. All right, well, it took me like 15 minutes to find the one person from NCDOT that was actually there. So I think it's important to make sure that planning board members and council members, in terms of their schedules, can attend.
Yeah.
And my other concern is that we got a new council. Congratulations. There's a lot on their plate. This was something that was an artifact from the previous council. So I want to make sure that we get buy-in at that level too, to promote, because I think they've done a good job of increasing the transparency, and I think the public has responded well to that. So
Yeah, I can tell you my goal is to get as much feedback however we can get it.
we're good.
All
right.
So, yep.
I'll
And as much time in advance,
Yep.
if we talk about it at February 19th, probably needs to be middle of March.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And that maybe aligns with maybe we got more folks here and available to participate as
Right.
the season progresses.
And I think I do think there needs to be when we have a draft, a special meeting for the planning board.
Sure.
And the only purpose of which would be show up, tell us what you think.
Yep. And that's, part of the intent of that.
July and August.
Yes,
Right.
sir. That is more specifically tailored to, hey, this is where we're at. Tell us what's off, what makes sense, etc. That's the goal of that
Yeah.
specifically. Okay.
All right.
And just as a point of information, the 2016 survey had over 900 respondents.
Yeah,
So 800 sounds good, but
we need more.
our population has increased by about 30%. So I'm not going to be happy until we get up to about 1,500. Now, how we do that,
Sure.
it's not, SurveyMonkey is
People
not
Yeah.
now I understand why people, well, nobody asked me.
Hmm.
So I don't know how we promote or encourage
Yep.
participation in this thing. It may need a,
We'll talk about. Let's get to the survey. And
Okay,
then
go ahead.
We'll talk about that.
great.
All right. Before we get to the survey, though, I just want to touch on a couple things. You're going to have all of this information in your chapters here. Don't look at that now. But just some initial information about demographics of note. That sort of sets our foundation and context for moving forward and understanding policies, goals, and things as it relates to the population here in Sunset Beach. Community profile has information on population growth and projections, population by age, housing units and growth, economy, and also tourism specifically, given that where we are located geographically, of course. As Mr. Dysinger alluded to, and just in terms of our population trends from 1990 to 2024, among all of the coastal beach communities in North Carolina, and we have data for all of those, Sunset Beach has had the greatest increase in their permanent population during that time frame. In fact, increasing by 14-fold since 1990. You can see that, in 1990, the island, the geography of Sunset Beach was only on the island. And over time, annexations occurred on the mainland, which really triggered those substantial population increases. By the time we got to 2010, of course, local governments no longer had the authority to involuntary annexation, and so population growth tempered a bit, but still moving at a fairly rapid pace, even post 2010. And as we all know, things slowed down fairly substantially in the first part of 2010. The population still continued to grow here in Sunset Beach, and of course in Brunswick County as well. So yeah, as I mentioned, 14-fold increase since 1990. That is a tremendous amount of growth, and along with that comes growth pains and strains, and understanding, hey, we're just this island community. Well, not anymore. That is certainly not the case any longer. So we're just as of 2024, a little around 4,800 permanent residents today in town of Sunset Beach. This is, I think one of the underlying statistics that we'll just need to be aware of, and will be part of moving forward with goals and policies and actions for the town. This is a demographic makeup in terms of population by age. Sunset Beach is shown there in the orange color. And so as of today, the town has approximately 80% of its population comprised of folks that are 55 years and older. You all know this. These are your colleagues, your friends. But you can see by this graphic how different that is than, for example, even Brunswick County or the state as a whole. And so there's some absolute positives to having a retiree population here, but there's some other things that long term are important to understand. Implications, what is our workforce to support us? Is it helpful to have a more diverse economy? Things like that long term is really important to understand.
Can we go back
Yes, sir.
one slide for just a second? Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Sure. As I mentioned, nearly half the population here of permanent residents are in this age bracket, 55 to 74. The labor force participation rate is also requisitely lower, of course. As part of the plan, we also want to understand, okay, well, we know we've got 4,800 full-time residents. That's the population in January, right? Today. Well, what is the population? What of our impacts come July 4th? It is substantially higher. I spoke with the chief about this, and it's an imperfect science to calculate this number, your seasonal population, your peak population numbers. But we would, based on our estimates and data, anticipate that on a peak night, you've got close to 19,000 folks here in the corporate limits of Sunset Beach. That's July 4th, Memorial Day. In the middle, in just a random summer week, it's probably closer to 15,000. So, and then if you add in your day trip folks, there's probably another 1,500 or so folks that are here. So on a peak day in summer, you've got a little over 20,000 folks here in and around Sunset Beach. That's important for various reasons, not the least of which is the impact on services. But also it's important for any businesses that are looking to locate in Sunset Beach. We want restaurants, cafes. Hey, don't look at our permanent population. It says 4,800. These are the folks that we have actually here during the summer that have money that want to spend at your businesses.
Can I
Yes,
ask one question in terms of this data?
Yes.
Is there a way to identify? Because what I see anecdotally is we're beginning to see a shift where the senior population is aging out, and the residents of those homes are being replaced with typically a younger demographic, quite often sons, daughters that have now, I mean, on my block alone, I can probably point to 6 homes where that's happened. So I'm kind of interested in terms of that demographic of new residents from 2020 to 2024, what does that look like?
We can look at that. I think the median age of permanent residents has continued to tick up, so I'm not sure that it is impactful enough. I think there's some of that occurring. That post-COVID migration to more seasonal destinations, and a little bit of what we've seen is some of that is starting to revert back and go the other direction.
Okay.
But I'm going to make a note of that and see if there's anything in the data that
Okay.
specifically speaks to that. Yes, sir.
And
Go
could
ahead.
we talk about, I'm interested in the population numbers, maybe on a monthly, trying to project out, if we're going to talk to businesses about,
Mm-hmm.
We have 20,000 or 19,000 people
Sure.
here, but what is it in March and October? So they could kind of plan ahead for what is that seasonal,
shoulder seasons?
right?
I can tell you that the shoulder seasons have increased. You guys have probably noticed that. I don't know how long you've lived here. Chief has been here. How long have you been here, Chief? 9th year. And so I would say 9 years ago, it is almost a ghost town until mid-April, late May. Now you're starting to see more folks on the road, more folks visiting mid to late March. I would say we're almost a month and a half sooner than 9 years ago. And similarly on the tail end, a month or month and a half more added to the season. That's anecdotally, but we can look at the accommodations revenue specifically.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was interested in.
And that will help
Yeah,
tell the tale. And we do have data for that also.
My perspective is anecdotally. I mean, back in mid 90s, late 90s, the majority of businesses here would shut down, okay, close for the season. Now you look, not so much.
Yeah. Just the
I
islands.
can only think of 3 or 4 that have chosen to shutter for a period during the off season. So I think there's enough business off season that can get them through to their peak times.
Right.
Because there are costs associated with shutting down and restarting.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
January and February along our coastline in southeastern North Carolina are now the requisite kind of dead months. We really have folks all the way through Christmas and New Year's. Not
Right.
as many, not even close. But it's the January and the February and a little bit of early March that truly there's it's just the permanent residents here for
Right.
the most part.
Right.
Okay. I've made a note of both those items.
Okay, thanks, Wes.
Sure. So we also want to look at, what's the balance of housing units in terms of those that are occupied by our full-time residents and those that are considered seasonal or just vacant, and how that's changed over time. And so, the data in Sunset Beach, speaks to the town being more of a mixed population town of a lot of permanent residents and also still more seasonal residents. You can see in 2000 the number of seasonal vacant units was more than double our occupied housing units. Now that number has gotten a lot closer together. Certainly some of that has to do with mainland annexation, but the number of occupied housing units, the growth is 3x the number of housing units that have been added for seasonal or vacant use. So again, I don't.
And it would be interesting to know the demographics of that household that converted.
You
So-
mean from a permanent?
Yeah, from seasonal to permanent.
It's a lot of it is attributed to one, annexation, but two, certainly there is only you can't add more. You
Yeah.
can't add more houses on the island, right? And so a lot of our new construction has been certainly on the mainland.
Permanent.
Yeah, and about 50% of those roughly are going to be for permanent residents, and 50% are going to be, a non-permanent resident,
All right.
even on the
All
mainland.
right. Well, the annexation issue kind of clouds.
It does.
So, all right.
Yes,
Thanks.
but it okay. We also pulled some data from building inspections. What's our rate that we're handing out or permitting new construction permits from a residential standpoint? And you can see here very clearly the jump that's occurred post-COVID. It will be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 years, but seems to be a pretty steady, relatively steady increase, and almost effectively doubling of the number of residential permits that are being issued by the town since 2019. There was a dip in 2020. Some of that's attributed to if we're effectively shut down for a couple months, but we're moving at a pretty good quick click here in the town of Sunset Beach, and around the region and the state, there has been a slowdown in the issuance of permits. That doesn't necessarily appear to be the case here in the town of Sunset Beach.
Now, just to be clear,
Yes, sir.
this only registers as a data point when a construction permit is issued.
Yes, sir.
So it does not reflect, for instance, the 1600
Those
Logan.
Yep. None of those are in
So
there.
none of
yet.
those are in.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's another 2,000, out there.
Right. That are waiting.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And I would point out a significant portion of that is multifamily.
It is. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So just, 2019, 2015 to 2020, we're averaging, 60 to 80. Now we're pretty much double that. I mentioned this earlier. This is a labor force participation rate. You guys are going to have all this in your material, so I apologize. There's a lot on here, but this is a comparison of all of our coastal municipalities in North Carolina and the relative labor force participation rate. You can see Sunset Beach, just about 1 out of 3 of your neighbors is still in the labor force. That checks out, I presume, and also aligns with our median age. You can see a neighboring jurisdiction, Ocean Isle, for example. That number's a bit lower. Ocean Isle does not have; it has very little mainland population, and so that is a much more full retirement based community versus kind of a semi-mixed here.
Ocean Isle?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay.
Yes. And a place like Oak Island, for example, that has even more mainland population, or a larger island that's not fully kind of resort oriented, labor force participation rate is almost up to 50%. So there's information about this. I just feel like it's helpful painting the picture and understanding the context moving forward. We also wanted to understand, all right, what does visitor spending look like? What are the impacts from tourism from a positive standpoint? Brunswick County, in fact, ranked 6th statewide in terms of visitor spending in 2024. trailing Guilford and Dare. Dare was the #1 coastal jurisdiction in terms of visitor spending, by fairly good margin, but we don't trail that far behind, and certainly Brunswick County outpaces New Hanover as well. You'll see Mecklenburg there with that 6.4 billion. That's a little deceiving because that also counts the visitors coming through the airport. So you can take almost a billion out of that number, 1.2 something, and it moves that number down a bit. Similarly with Wake as well. So those are why those Wake County and Mecklenburg are so high. One more here. Did I get stuck? Alan, did it get stuck? There we go. We'll have to back into this a bit and maybe go back to 2015 to see the difference. You can see here since 2020, and I know it was a COVID year, but during the summer there really wasn't a ton of necessary. There was some limitation, but this is a marketed increase over the last 5 years in terms of accommodations revenue. And so, you can see the difference in May and August, for example, in terms of accommodations tax revenue that's remitted to the town. And I'm going to go back and see if I can pull some of that data from 2018 to see what the difference is moving forward here.
Now, the accommodation tax,
Yes, sir.
how does that exactly work? So that's a tax placed on rentals,
Yes. So
hotels.
Yep. Every time. So let's say that I book or I have a reservation in Sunset Beach. I pay 6% tax on that. Half of that is remitted to the 3% of that is remitted to the town of Sunset Beach. And that's every single person that stays in a rental anywhere here.
And 3% goes to the county.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank
Yep. So that as a source of revenue has substantially increased over the years. And has been very beneficial for our local governments.
And just to be clear, that number represents the 3% to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I got that right from the finance department. We got that right from the finance department.
Okay.
All right. Just those are a couple quick highlights. Just wanted to share some of that I found to be interesting. There's more than you want to know in your chapters there, and we'll talk about it in more detail once you've had time to read through it. Moving on to the survey. Any question about that information? Okay. So, as of yesterday, there was a total of 848 responses to the survey. From my perspective, I think that's pretty good, given that we had the holidays. Folks, had other things going on. Approximately 95% of respondents identifying as full-time residents or property owners. So also, that comes as no surprise. That's what I anticipated. I think I'm going to go through just a couple of the preliminary.
So essentially what we're saying here is 800 full-time out of a population of 4,500.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's, pretty standard. Gosh, I'd love to get, 50%, participation rate on these things, but it's unfortunate.
Well, in terms of statistical validity, that's way over.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But once we go through this summary, we'll talk a little bit about what's been done so far and other options for outreach. So, just an overarching question, and you guys were very helpful in refining these questions. what do you think? This is the overarching question. What do you think are the most important growth and development issues facing Sunset Beach? These were wide ranging, right? And overwhelmingly, the first one, or the response, or the choice getting the most responses, was protecting natural resources, shorelines, and sensitive habitats, followed by expanding town services and infrastructure to specifically support growth. And both those themes are kind of evident throughout at least the preliminary results. None of this sort of stands out to me necessarily as a surprise. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Probably.
Well,
Also.
my first thought is those two elements are somewhat at odds with
odds.
each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want more infrastructure and growth, but we don't want to screw anything up.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, well, all right.
And
Okay, thanks.
that is a very good comment, and there's some of that throughout here that that we're going to have to sort through as we move through the plan on how specifically to address it. So if privately owned undeveloped land is to be built on, what kind of new, and this is hypothetical, right? What kind of new development would you most like to see in Sunset Beach? Recreation, entertainment, nature-based amenities, and then, as Richard alluded to, I was going to point out the juxtaposition of, well, actually, we want restaurants and cafes too. So we want parks and restaurants in cafes. Interestingly, I think it probably comes as no surprise that multifamily development, hotel or resort style condos receiving effectively 0% of the responses. That it comes as no surprise to me as well. But you've really got a preference here for some amount of commercial development. You have retail shops and healthcare facilities also receiving effectively the same number of responses as low density single family residential development.
Well, it's pretty much, we've screwed the pooch on hotels, because in 2016 that number was over 30%. So, all right.
Which of the following housing characteristics are most important? This is housing specific. Again, preference there, and these are almost exactly aligned. Protecting natural resources and minimizing environmental impacts, and then again, ensuring infrastructure can support new housing. If we are going to have new housing, although we'd prefer to have the infrastructure and protect the environment first, then we would like it to be low density single family. That checks out, aligns with what I would anticipate the results to be. And this question had to deal with transportation. There's really 3 that stood out as receiving the most responses so far. Which of the following transportation concerns and needs are most important to the town of Sunset Beach? The one receiving the most responses was congestion during peak tourism seasons. That, I'll be honest, I was sort of surprised to see that getting the most number of responses, but that really speaks to how folks are feeling during our peak summer season. And then maintenance and improvement of local streets, and then pedestrian and bicycle safety and connectivity these are really kind of similarly got similar number of responses. In the past, that preference for pedestrian and bicycle safety has been higher, for example. Questions on that?
No.
Okay. I will say that, and I believe Mr. Chair, or I don't remember who it was, requested to add the alternative transportation methods from mainland to the island. That almost 30, yep.
Had a significant number.
A significant number, yes, sir. All right. There is, as of today, I think almost 60 pages total if you just print out the entirety of what we there's a lot of open-ended responses attached to each of those questions, and then just some of the open-ended responses. I've got a quick overview of kind of the general themes of those: slow growth and stop overdevelopment, protect natural resources, trees, and water quality, preserve Sunset Beach's small town coastal character, fix infrastructure and traffic before allowing more growth. These are just a couple of the quoted straight from the survey. Throttle the rampant growth in homes being built in the area. Growth must be slowed or infrastructure will never keep up. Growth at all cost is bad for everyone. Every piece of land does not need to be built on. And we love that it is calm and quiet, family oriented, and underdeveloped. If overdevelopment is allowed, all this will be destroyed. So, obviously, folks, over the last couple of years, and this is not unique to Sunset Beach, have felt that growth has really outpaced kind of their temperature for it. It's important to understand for us, we can't just put up a gate. Our laws and statutes don't allow it, but we're seeking sentiment of the public without unbiased, right? And
Right.
so this is what folks are telling us.
A lot of that applies to Brunswick County in total, not necessarily to
The township.
our municipal
100%.
limits.
Yep.
That's
And just from a preliminary standpoint, these are just some of the key themes, and I think you guys sort of pulled these out too, and just going through these initial responses. Strong preference for protecting natural resources, broad concern that growth is outpacing infrastructure, clear support for low density residential patterns, minimal support for high density resort or hotel style development, and then desire to preserve Sunset Beach's small town identity. And then lastly, this aligns with really the first one, but emphasis on water quality, tree protection, wetlands, dunes, and wildlife, traffic congestion, evacuation safety, and pedestrian bicycle safety are major concerns. There is a surprising amount of sort of responses tied to drinking water quality as well. I know that we had this discussion. This is outside the purview of the town, but still something that came up fairly continuously. Okay, so that is a not final, preliminary understanding of where we are today with the survey. So for you all, I guess what I anticipate or sounds like, we want to get more responses at a minimum. So,
And more responses is more to assuage. Well, nobody asked me.
sure.
I got 2 years of graduate level statistics. God help me, I enjoyed it. In terms of a statistical model, we got 20%. I don't think we're going to see much change
I agree.
if we get to 40.
Yep.
Okay, but I do think it's important that people feel like they were asked, and now we have something that we can work from. It does. The problem, and it's not up to Sunset Beach to fix it. But the reality is that there's not enough affordable housing. And I think it's pretty clear that Brunswick County is going to try and solve that problem. Now, how Sunset Beach protects itself from, in truth, residents, in terms of residential development, we're pretty much done. I don't think there's much out there that's going to come down the pike. Logan was really the last big chunk. So it's more interesting and frankly, the Logan development does, to some extent, fly in the face of what people want, which I don't have a problem with. But I think, really trying to get a handle on what's next in terms of commercial development, it's what's really going to define the next 5 years.
Sure.
And I think we got some guidance here.
Yep.
So the town doesn't send out any monthly billing, right? Because all the water and sewer goes through the county. Right?
So that was going to be my yeah. So the next question was, what do we need to do in terms of let's let more folks know, or those folks that haven't taken it yet. I said there's two things. One, when we get to the point when this board is comfortable, we'll send out a notice that says, hey, you have until X date to take the survey. We'll get some folks that have been waiting because now they know that the end is near, and if they're going to take it, you need to take it now. We can send out a similar notice. But as far as water billing or trash billing or anything like that, Kimberly, do we have any mailed notices that we send out specifically to residents? Yep, I did. Recycling.
Recycling. That's once a year, right?
Yep.
And
Okay.
trying to figure out how we.
Sure.
I mean,
We have a sunshine list too, and I don't know that we sent an initial email out to folks that are on that, or did we? Oh, you have. Okay. Okay. All right.
And it's on the site. Um,
The town's website.
I mean, there are probably about 5 or 6 social media sites.
Mhm.
It might be worth our while. And some of them, so for instance, Sunset Beach Taxpayer Group, you have to be a taxpayer. So it's a
Sure.
small population, but
Yep.
those folks, some of the others, Friends of Sunset Beach, Community of Sunset Beach, anybody can sign up.
Sure.
So they have much larger participation. But it probably would be worth a shot to kind of go into each of those and say, oh, by the way,
Mhm.
here's how you can participate in the survey.
Would any of you guys like to post the survey on that on those sites?
I'll do it. Yeah. If you want to,
I can
Billy,
give
if you
you.
want to prepare like a message that you
You-
feel comfortable with in terms of,
Just a link.
or just a
Yeah,
link
just
to the
a link.
town
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
You should be able to copy the existing.
no pressure.
And I don't want to go against any, I don't know, social media guidelines and everything else with that, but
I've posted it on our Facebook page numerous times.
Okay.
On
And
our Facebook page.
yeah.
the town of Sunset Beach,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
their Facebook page. So you are more than welcome to share that to any group pages.
That is
Okay,
a
so-
great
Get it out.
idea.
So that communication is
Yep.
on Town of
Yep.
Sunset Beach. So I could
Yep.
just lift that and put it anywhere.
Yep.
I
All right,
just did
great.
it again today while we were in this meeting. So.
You are the best. Okay.
Fantastic.
And
Well
we
done.
are, it's not like we're getting a big chunk. We're, there's continued, we're getting results trickle in. Back. So I guess it would be my thought, let's see where we are February 19th, see, how much the needle moves. And if at that point in time you guys want to settle on a date to send out to folks, hey, it's going to be open till April 1 or whatever it is, or May 1, we can do that. And then also February 19th, we can just move. We can wait another month and see how many more results we get if
Okay,
you're
well, the
comfortable
one
with that.
inquiry I am getting is, how long will this thing be up?
Yeah.
And I've kind of like gone, I don't know.
You guys as an advisory group are sort of,
Still got a couple
Help.
of months, I would tell them.
yeah,
May 1st.
So it's going to
Yeah.
be up at least until,
at least another month at a minimum.
Okay.
We'll come back February 19th and see where we are,
Right.
have a similar sort of presentation.
and if we were to say February 19th, enough is enough, we would shut it down end of month.
Sure. Yeah. You could send out a notice and said, hey, you got 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is,
Okay.
till April 1 to take the survey.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
All right.
Well, I mean, this is great data. I mean, I'm very pleased with what we're getting.
Yeah, we've got a lot of feedback, and again, once we close this out, we'll get you guys the full booklet of
Okay.
all the responses, good, bad, and different. All right, thank you for your time in going through that. Again, we'll meet February 19th. The goal for that meeting, we'll have an update on the survey. But we'll go through this material page by page. So if you can, between now and then, read through it. I've already got a couple comments to pull some data on. And then we'll also have some new material. Also, when we meet on the 19th, we'll have some dates identified for our first community meeting.
Right? And then
I would go ahead, Stu.
we have copies for our 2 missing
Yes, sir.
board members.
They are in their box.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. I guess the other thing I would like to see included in this, once we've kind of defined, okay, here's the issues that we're dealing with, kind of an explanation of we don't control sewage.
Sure.
If
Yeah,
you
of
want to
course.
change sewage policy, here are the people you need to go talk
Yep.
to, and really have bullet points in terms of, all right, road issue, the 904 is under review, 31, here are the people you need to call. So we can focus some of this energy,
Sure.
rather than them coming to the planning board saying, why can't you do this? It's kind of like, well, because we can't.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. All that will be, detailed and conveyed,
fantastic.
Yes, sir.
One last comment.
Yes, sir.
I was just thinking, when we do the public engagement, would it be good to have a map up of, like an area map of our part of Brunswick County, showing the limits of Sunset Beach town limits? Because a lot of people I talk to, they don't even know.
They have no clue.
Sure. Where
Because that may help them understand that we're not in control of all these projects that are going on around
Sure.
us. That,
Right.
I can absolutely. And we'll talk about that public meeting again on the 19th. But there'll be a similar overview to what was just provided. We're not going to, including what a land use plan is, but I can also absolutely have a map on as part of that presentation. Hey, this is where our geography lies, what we're responsible for. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it would be helpful to showcase this is what Brunswick County's doing. They just approved another, I think 18,000 household plats.
For the whole county.
They that's just a reality. I mean, the difficult thing to convey to people is that in terms of the political pressure going forward for more housing, it is overwhelming. There was a survey done recently of 25 to 30-year-old family members, head of family members, 80% of them don't think they will ever own a house in their lifetime. That's got to change.
Sure. Well, you'll see in some of the data. In fact, I think depending on how you look at it, Sunset Beach has one of the more moderate median housing values in terms of coastal municipalities. But we'll talk about that
Great.
when we get next month.
Wes, this is great stuff. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. That's all I have. I appreciate you sitting with me through all that. Any other questions, Mr. Chair, for me?
No.
Okay.
I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wes. All right. Next up is administrative comments.
I
Chief,
will not be here February 19th.
you will not be here.
I will not be here.
Okay.
Just to make sure.
My understanding is Mike will be, and Ron will be, so I think we'll be
Yeah.
okay.
I just want to make sure.
Chief, you got anything? I have a couple of questions for you. So last month we talked about some hopefully additional items that we could add to the land use plan. And it's in the minutes, a couple of items that I wanted to get pricing on. Is that something that, that you need to take care of and get back to Wes, or just trying to keep it moving somehow or another?
Refresh my memory on what we were getting pricing on.
There were 2 additional focus areas that we wanted to add to Wes's contract. And one was specific to Sunset Boulevard, one was specific to the island. And I had written up specific, items on there. I don't know what the proper procedure is for getting pricing on those, because we'll have to get pricing, and then, if the planning board says, yeah, this looks good, then we have to send it to council for them to approve that money. So I don't know if you want to take those items and send them to Wes, or have a conversation with Wes
Yeah,
about how we
That's
do
what I'm
this.
thinking would probably be best, to get Wes's input on it, and then do exactly what you described.
Okay.
Have the planning board take a look at it, and then look for approval from council. If it's a budgetary item, depending upon the cost, then it's going to be presented to the council in the regular budget process, which begins. We'll likely start talking about that in February.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to keep it moving.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And there's another vendor that was involved as an optional add-on, and I will send the requested scope of services to them to see if they can give us a fee, and then I'll provide that to you. That would be, and for the most part, fully handled by them, and they would just participate as part of this.
Sure.
If that works.
That'll work.
All right. Second thing I had for you, Chief. Or do I call you Chief, or
You can call me
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Chief works? So the council approved a new meeting guidelines, handbook, whatever, at the meeting Monday night. Are
They
we
did.
going to get trained?
You are. There's a few modifications that have to be made, because following the book to the letter, there's some things that they still have to look at. Kimberly is working on a digital format of that for you that will be sent out to you. You're not going to be left in the dark on it.
Okay. So are we going to get a book, or are we just going to get
You're going
trained
to get
on
a
what
digital
to do?
copy of the book.
Okay. And that'll be coming up shortly, because we have to implement it by March.
Shortly, yes.
Y'all know about that?
No.
Kimberly's
So-
saying it'd be on the February meeting. If you want to add that to the agenda.
Might as well.
Sounds good.
So town council approved adding a UNC handbook of governments or something like that for our meeting format, and we're supposed to follow that.
Oh, lovely.
We'll just
Yeah.
think
So-
of it. Think of it as like rules and procedures.
Yeah. So
Anything
know
that
that
sticks
it's-
out, or too soon to tell?
don't know. I haven't.
Okay. All right.
I just heard about it last week and then watched the meeting Monday night, so I don't even know what's involved in it. All right. Anything else? Administrative comments? All right. Then we can open the floor for any public comments. All right. Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.